Hello, everybody. Welcome to Connection Experiment. Curious what your relationship is like with lead sheets. And maybe if you want to explain a little bit about what lead sheets are, but just like your process, how do you feel when you're playing from a lead sheet? Do you feel inspired, intimidated, both? Give me your thoughts. I'm curious.
Definitely. So, for those of you that don't know what a lead sheet is, it's just a piece of music where you have the melody written out and lyrics oftentimes, and then above the melody line, you have chord symbols that are written. So, it's basically a blueprint for building a house, but the most bare bones. And so, a lead sheet leads you down the path, but you have to figure out how you get to your destination in many ways. So a lead sheet is where you generally play chords in the left hand and play the melody in the right hand. And that insinuates that you have a foundation of understanding, well, how do I play these chords in the left hand and how do I voice them in ways that feel inspiring to me and all that. And so, so that's just what a lead sheet is for those of you that weren't already aware. I guess my relationship with lead sheets, it's changed a lot over the years. I mean, initially I would look at it and be like, what the heck am I supposed to play? There's like nothing written here. Like there's just a melody and then like a C written above. And that is given me very little to work with. So over the years, I have developed some tools that have helped me understand how to flesh out and improvise through a lead sheet. So I've gotten to a place now, through obviously years of feeling intimidated, to a place where I now feel really I guess comfortable with a lead sheet. I feel like to me, the less that's written, the more free I feel, and the more that's written, the more restricted I feel. And I don't know if that's just how like my artistry is morphed over the years, but I really like having flexibility, and I think that really basic lead sheets offer me that, which I like that flexibility, and I like the opportunity to take a map of something and then turn it into my own, which is something that, the more detailed it becomes, kind of then the more pressure I feel to recreate exactly what's on the page. And I've talked to a lot of people who don't feel that way. They feel the opposite, and I'm excited to hear how you feel about it, Ashley. But I think with lead sheets, what I found is that like you need to learn a vocabulary before you expect yourself to create music looking at one. And I have found that over the years of, taking lots of different lessons from a lot of different instructors and listening to tons of different arrangements of the same piece from different artists, I've kind of put some tools in my toolbox that I continue to build upon. So every time I'm learning a new song, I obviously go and listen to references and ideas that other people have put together, and I try to emulate those ideas that I like, and then eventually come up with ideas that are hopefully sort of my own. But it's just sort of an ever-changing process. But it definitely went from feeling like, what do I do, to now feeling like, oh, I love that I'm not being told what to do. This is great. It's just a gentle guidance rather than a get every note on the page sort of situation. So, yeah. But how about you, Ashley? How do you feel about lead sheets, or what do you have to share about them?
Sure. It's great hearing your experience. I like that. I think that because of who I am and the way that I was brought up, like my education in music was mostly focused on Western classical. And so I didn't learn about lead sheets. Like I didn't learn how to read from a lead sheet until much later. And even in college, I think in like undergrad, I didn't know how to read from a lead sheet. And I would, of course, like pull up songs that, I would pull up songs like if I heard a song on the radio that I really liked, I would like type in the chord, like, this the chords for this song, and I would pull up like the guitar tabs or like the guitar chord chart, and I would read from that. So it wasn't that I totally had no idea, but there was never any formal instruction. And I guess that actually remains true to this day, that I've never had like formal instruction on lead sheets. All of it has been self-taught and kind of like early on, or when I was in high school and I was really getting into playing like the music that I was super interested in addition to all of my Western classical music, I would just look things up, and then I would like look up videos, and I would kind of like seek out my own resources. So I think I was excited by it, but I always felt intimidated for sure. And always like it was this sphere that I didn't belong in, because I think regardless of who your teacher is, and regardless of like how amazing or not amazing your music education is, there's going to be gaps in the knowledge, right? There's just way too much. It's way too big of a subject to know everything by the time you get to point anywhere. But by the time you get to college or out of college or out of grad school or at a certain point in your career, it's not possible that you're going to know all of it. And so I think in some ways it's felt intimidating, it's felt overwhelming. But as an adult, now that I've gone through and I've like taught it to myself and I enjoy playing from lead sheets to an extent, and I teach them to my students. I think the biggest takeaway for me with lead sheets, honestly, is like kind of draws back to things we've talked about on other podcast episodes, which is like you have to give yourself the space to explore and you have to give yourself the space to sound bad. And I think growing up the way that I grew up and just like being the person that I was in the world, I wasn't okay with that for a really long time. And it took me a long time to allow for that. And so now when I'm teaching students how to play from lead sheets, or when we're going over improvisation or like how to take a lead sheet and make it your own, I just like to give that caveat that like there's going to be a lot of versions that don't sound good. There's going to be a lot of versions that you don't like, and that's actually good. That's a part of the process. But I think still, I mean, there's definitely still a part of me that gets uncomfortable with that, and I definitely have to like push through that and make myself do it. I was actually just teaching lead sheets today, and I was giving this same speech because I was like, it takes a long time sometimes, especially if you're newer to it and you don't know what you're doing and you're not quite sure what the chords are and your rhythm isn't, super solid, then it's going to take a little while for it to sound good. So I guess I like that lesson. I like learning that lesson, and I like reminding myself and my students of that lesson. And I would say I'm definitely more comfortable now. But I wouldn't go so far as what you said. I wouldn't say it's like where I feel the most free or like the most at ease at all. But I enjoy playing from them.
Yeah, I agree. I think obviously there's always caveats, and it's not like I always feel comfortable. But I do like what you said about how you have to give yourself permission to sound kind of basic or simple
or bad.
right. I mean, and I think like that's such a subjective word. I feel like it's like, of course, you're not going to sound bad. Maybe you're not going to sound like what you think you should sound like right out the gate. And I think that we have such high expectations for ourselves, at least you and I do, and I know a lot of our listeners probably do as well, that like everything we play needs to sound like a freaking just godsend
recording.
yeah. And I think that it's nice to just say like, all my arrangements that I've ever created have evolved over the years, and I add to them or I take away, and you have to really like honor that process of like, taking a lead sheet and saying, okay, like I'm curious. It's like a blank canvas in many ways, and I think that that's just like such a good thing to be aware of. So yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think that I'm really excited to hear what our listeners have to say about lead sheets, because I think that there's just so many different approaches and feelings towards lead sheets, and we're excited to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, definitely share your thoughts with us. And if you're liking listening, go ahead and screenshot this and share it on social media. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube or rate the podcast. That would really help us out. And we want to get to know you. We want to hear from you. So let us know how you feel about lead sheets. Let us know what your thoughts are. Is it something that's like totally undiscovered in your realm of piano playing, or is it something that you have worked on? We would love to hear about it. Have a great one.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.